there was always resistance to what was perceived to be criticism of them. And I think of an example. When I came to be convener, there were 18 standing committees that the bar had at that time. And I think, I may be wrong about this, only one, possibly Rachel, had just been appointed to the county court, and you chaired the Equality Before the Law Committee. And once Rachel left, I don't think we had a woman chairing a standing committee, or possibly only one woman.
The Childcare Committee.
The Childcare Committee, that's right. And when we raised these sorts of issues, there was always a desire not to make them feel that we were just being overly critical, but really, couldn't we just get to the stage that we could, when they were appointing these standing committees, which there was no real process as such, it's just that the chair of the Bar Council and the Bar Council appointed people to these committees, and inevitably the chair of the committee was a male, and often a senior male too, like a silk. And we said, well, you know, can we just look at a more transparent process and include the women? You know, we're still here, we're represented as a group, but we're not represented within these organisations. And the perception I felt was that you had to tippy-toe around a bit to make them feel that it wasn't a personal criticism, because they'd overlooked the fact that really women weren't being represented in significant areas of the power structure of the bar, and that flowed down the bar. And we perceived that as a wrong, and we also perceived it as something that needed to be corrected.
And in calling for more due process, which is what you were just alluding to a moment ago, in a sense, could it be said that the WBA might have been, in a sense, responsible for bringing greater procedures of transparency, accountability to bar culture, and certainly at the Bar Council level?
Well, it's my belief that men have benefited from it too, and that was one of the arguments we put forward, is that a transparent process, a process whereby people could put their hands up and say, I want to be on that committee. That's the first thing. But secondly, that there'd be a process whereby they appointed at least a couple of women to the committee. That was a recommendation in the report, that women have representation on a range of committees. Men benefited too, because they got into that process as well. Because I know when I was convener, and also when I was chair of Equality Before the Law Committee, men complained to me about not being able to get onto committees themselves, that they felt that they were being sidelined.
And what was the evidence for that?
Well, by more powerful men who traditionally got onto those committees. In other words, the process was failing men as well, who wanted the opportunity to go on these committees too. So yes, I think they benefited all around from the changes that women have pressed for.
Judge Norton.
The Code of Conduct is very important as an education tool, because at the time that it was introduced, most of the men were saying, oh, it just doesn't happen, you know, it never happens. And then after it was introduced, I was on a committee, the Equalising Opportunities in the Law Committee, which was a Law Council Canberra committee, and we moved and it was introduced Australia-wide, and there was a great deal of resistance, and the Victorian Bar was held as a very progressive body, because they had already introduced it, and they were.
Because they did do it, and they supported it once it was in.
Yes.
But you still need that sort of change of attitude, change of...
You do.
Because you're never going to change their attitudes, but you might change their behaviours. I mean, there's always going to be this core group of people who believe that conduct is perfectly acceptable, but if there would be consequences if they act it out, and if they understand there's consequences, they don't. It's as simple as that.
There's still a level of unconsciousness and ignorance about the sort of things that people might be offended by. And at dinners this year, I've heard comments that are meant to inspire and encourage junior members of the bar said that have just shocked me. And immediately I've gone up and said to the person who said them, you can't say that. That's revolting. And, why, really? You can be sure that person will never say that sort of thing again, but you still have to say it.
Why can't a woman be more like a man? Men are so honest, so thoroughly square, eternally noble, historically fair. Who when you win will always give your back a pat. Why can't a woman be like that?